Resident Evil 7, or Biohazard 7, or Resident Evil 7 Biohazard, or Biohazard 7 Resident Evil, or Resident Evil 7 Biohazard / Biohazard 7 Resident Evil, as the game's atrocious executable file name would have you believe. I've never understood the Biohazard moniker. Aside from being boring as cold piss, it's never really made a whole lot of sense. The vast majority of the games in the series have centered around a player exploring large living quarters with malevolent entities of indeterminate origin, a residence of evil, if you will, and perhaps no game to date has embodied that concept more efficiently than Resident Evil 7. Biohazard. Fuck. You see, the thing to note about the Resident Evil franchise is that there have been 6 previous numbered installments, and only one of them is any good. The first 3 are painfully dated PS1-era polygon purees rendered tedious and obsolete by some of the worst controls ever to grace mankind. 5 and 6, while not technically inept, are basically the video game equivalent of Roland Emmerich movies. Loud, crowded, self-important visual nonsense that never stops talking but still manages to have absolutely nothing to say. What made 4 the lone exception is not really all that complicated. For starters, Capcom gave the game actual control, so playing it no longer felt like pulling teeth with a crowbar. It also didn't take itself so goddamn seriously. I mean, the premise was rescuing the president's daughter, for crying out loud. It would have been silly enough without the angry zombie Spanish peasants and Napoleon Bonaparte chew toy running around. We do understand that it was supposed to be a parody, right? I mean, Leon S. Kennedy is basically Kurt Russell in the 90s, or Gerard Butler's character from every movie he's ever been in. Well, except Phantom of the Opera, obviously, but nobody counts that. So to most, the solution to restore the series to its former fleeting glory was to bring back the camp. Capcom's reaction was an odd and unexpected one. It would seem that they actually, wait for it, listen to what the people wanted. Might seem like forward thinking, I know, but the fact that we're praising video game developers for the most basic of corporate courtesies is kind of pathetic when you think about it, but I suppose in this day and age you take what you can get. Anyways, in Resident Evil 7, the main character is Ethan, whose search for his long-missing sexy wife has led him to the campiest region in the known universe, outside of maybe San Francisco, the great state of Louisiana. Or as it stands, what Louisiana might seem like to a group of Japanese game developers after 10 gallons of coffee in 5 minutes on Google image search. As such, it's not entirely inaccurate. A veritable whirlwind of alligators, pelicans, riding lawnmowers, and Zapp's brand potato chips. Seriously, it could only be more Louisiana if there had been king cakes, beignets, and Confederate flags everywhere. However, with nary a moment to soak in the stereotype, the plot kicks off and the player is tasked with curtailing a concession of conspicuous cidnappings carried out by coked-up cannibalistic coonasses while combating the crooked creatures contained therein. Or, to put it less alliteratively, it's deliverance by way of John Carpenter's The Thing, and it's actually quite compelling for the most part. It's definitely a favor to Capcom's consistently atrocious writing department. The nonsense tends to make a lot more sense when every character in the game is established as having collectively lost their fucking minds. But none of that really matters. Yeah, sure, it's great to have, but it's all just icing on the cake compared to what is far and away the best character in the game, and that's the house. Every facet of this game's environment is dripping with an unmistakable air of suspense. That and all the flesh-eating black licorice. Seriously, folks, if the Baker farm doesn't end up among the likes of Silent Hill, the Von Braun, and the Asylum from Outlast as one of the best horror game settings of all time, I will be extremely disappointed. The gameplay's received a major overhaul as well, with a shift to a new player perspective and a newfound emphasis on exploration and inventory management. Another thing that Resident Evil 4 did. Well, don't that beat all? Thanks to the strict resource conservation and limited movement, combat with both the game's antagonists and the indisputably creepy monster designs is just as much of a logic puzzle as the actual puzzle segments, and oftentimes the optimal solution is to avoid it altogether. Now you might be thinking to yourself, James, this sounds like every horror game made since 2011. And you know what? You're kinda right, asshole. Trends get a bad rap, but there's really nothing wrong with trends if you're willing to rally around and make a good fucking game out of it. But if super solid horror gameplay and a compelling story and characters aren't enough for you, where Resident Evil 7 really excels is tone. For something as inherently wacky as insane redneck cannibals to actually come across as intimidating and even legitimately scary at times, while still not acting too mythologically self-aggrandizing, is impressive in and of itself. That is, until the last half hour when the game suddenly turns into a super serious J-horror movie for no apparent reason outside of some half-baked attempt to shoehorn series continuity into a place where it really wasn't needed. I feel like I just went through this with Split, but instead of making a decent movie better, it instead made an otherwise great game rather disappointing in the end. Still, definitely worth the 7 or 8 hours it takes before the game decides to become stupid. Check it out.